How many of you are teachers? Okay. How many of you are not teachers? Let me see your hand up. How many of you are not teachers? Okay, I'm seeing some hands, right? Well, that was a tricky question in a way, because everyone here is a teacher. Do you believe that? You are either learning from someone or someone is learning from you. And there is no how someone has not learned something from you, either good or bad. Hello? Do you believe that? So, how many of you now are teachers? All right, all hands good. All of us are teachers, right? But then I'm here to talk about teachers with a purpose. Because people can just teach randomly. You know, you are doing something bad, you know, either someone is smoking out there and someone is watching him smoke and the person begins to smoke as well. That's a teacher still. But that's not the kind of teacher I want to talk about. A one with a definite purpose. A purpose-driven teacher. And I love to talk about purpose a lot. And that's because one of my role models of blessed memory, Miles Monroe, said this, that when purpose is not known, what happens? Abuse is inevitable. So when a teacher does not have a purpose, there's going to be an abuse. It's either he abuses himself, or he's been abused, or he abuses the students that he is to teach. That's why purpose is very important. Driven. Now, how many of you would agree with me that a car that is driven by a driver will always move faster, farther, and much easier than a car that is pushed? If you don't have those motivations from the outside, what about the one that you can do or have from the inside? Hello? Because if you want to wait for the one that comes from the outside, oh yes, oh, it will move you. I have no doubt about that. But I have also noticed in my little life, in my little experience, that a man who is internally motivated always outperforms the man that is externally motivated. Unfortunately, the educational system we have today is flawed. And you can attest to that, right? Because what do we see today? Most times we go to school and then we just go and cram what they want us to know. At the end of the day, we cram our way into the examination hall, cram our ways out, and then after some time, we don't even know what we just crammed. We have forgotten everything. So it tells you that education is higher than just taking people to school and then bombard them with information. That is not really the essence of education. The real essence of education is to help that student, that child, to bring out what they have on their inside. Because everyone has something on their inside. Do you believe that? Everyone. Some years ago, my parents wanted me to be a doctor, but that was not what was on my inside. I kept writing examination that would qualify me to read medicine, but it was not forthcoming. And I'm happy that it didn't work. Why? Because there was no medicine on my inside. If I had forced my way to become a doctor, maybe I would have killed a lot of patients today. They would say, oh, the worst doctor who have killed about 5,000 patients in 1 year. But there was something on my inside, which is what I am doing now. I began to have mentors who exposed me to myself, to my true self. They say, oh, if you want to become this, then read this book. Read this book. And as I began to read those books, I began to find meaning, true meaning to life. Something in me, the thing in me began to cry out for expression. And today, by the grace of God, we have made a little progress, if I would say. We have touched lives. We have been on many platforms. We have made money as well. Why? Because someone helped me to bring out what is on my inside. And that is what education is. So my question to you, teachers, as I begin to round off, is how much of an impact are you making on the students that you are teaching? I'm sure some of us cannot even remember the names of our teachers back then. Oh yes, trust me that if you ask me to even list the names of some of the teachers that taught me in primary school and even secondary school, I am very sure I might just manage to mention maybe 3 or 4. And I shouldn't forget their names on a normal day, right? But then the question is, how much of an impact did they make in my life that would make me remember them? Maybe I only remember them for the fact that they just taught a particular subject. It's bigger than that. Teaching is bigger than just teaching a subject. It's more about an impact. If after 6 years of teaching, your students go out there and they cannot remember your name. Oh, I'm sorry to say this, but you are not purpose-driven. That's the blunt truth. If after 6 years, because I see teachers as farmers, they are always planting seeds. So if after 6 years, that seed you have planted in that child's life is not growing, or there is no evidence of growth, it means you have not really planted the right seed. My neighbor, I just saw recently that my neighbor's children, they planted some maize. And I think I saw maize. I asked, what's this? He said it's maize. And I'm like, it was looking different from the maize I know, the maize plant. Because I know my mom used to have a farm then. She had maize farm. And the plants will grow so big, you know. You know maize, no matter what, it's the stalks, they are big and all of that. But then I had to ask myself, okay, why is this one different from the one that my mom used to farm? Can I tell you the difference? The person that planted and where he planted the seed. What did he do? He planted his own seed in a small container, this kind of Santana water container. He put sand. And so the tree could not grow beyond that container. But the man that plants his seed on a vast ground, all of a sudden, because the tree has room to grow, you see it blossoming. That environment that you teach your students is very important. Does that environment help them to stretch, or does it confine them to a limited space? You should ask yourself that question. Education is bigger than the four walls of a school. As a matter of fact, if anyone ever thinks school is just the four walls of a school, do you know what they've just done? They have likened that school, in quotes, to a prison wall that confines prisoners. Because the prison wall limits you. So if your environment, if your school environment limits your children from bringing out their potential, you have imprisoned them. But you can be a teacher that impacts instead of imprison. So I understand that you want to be motivated, you want to do, some people say, oh, the reason I go is because of, I just want to do it, there's no job. It's bigger than that. I'm going to close with this story. It's a very sympathetic story. And please, apologies to policemen. No disrespect, right? I was watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire a few days ago. And then there was this guy who was in the hot seat. And then he was saying something like, okay, what are I going to use this money for? And then he remembered an experience he had some years ago. He said one time he was coming out of an estate in Lagos, and there was this car that hit the bike that he was on, and he broke his leg. And said some policemen rushed to the scene. And while he was saying that, my wife and I were just openly like, oh, even the guy presenting, Frakedoho, he was just like, wow, finally we're going to hear something good about police. Hey, police rush and help this guy. We're about to just hear that. All of a sudden he said, policemen came and took him with his broken legs. And instead of them rushing into the hospital, they took him to the police station to go and write a report. He was in pain. But all they cared about was to take him to the police station to write a report. So if you ask that kind of a policeman, he will say, well, if the government does not pay us money, that's why we have to do what we are doing anyhow. No, a simple empathy. You don't need money for that. You just need to be purpose-driven. So if that kind of a policeman is purpose-driven, is internally motivated, he should know that, the first place to take this man is the hospital. We can talk about the report later. So when people are out of purpose, what happens? They begin to do the unthinkable. And then it begins to affect the children and their future. You don't want to be like that. So once again, do you intend to imprison or to impact the children you are teaching? I leave you with that question. Thank you very much. Ladies and